I'm calling this Do What Is Required because many times in our personal and our business life, we're faced with decisions that we make on how to spend our time. And there was a situation in my business that happened last week that is a perfect example of doing what is required. And so I make these not only to remind myself, but when examples present themselves that I feel like would be beneficial to share with you, I want to share them with you. Who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I'm a full-time real estate investor. I've been doing it for 4 years now, and I share these so they can make you more money in your real estate business. So what happened is last week, I've been working a lead for a couple weeks where I've been communicating with the son of a seller. And normally when I'm communicating with anyone other than who is on title, then I'm going to get that person on the phone. But I spent a significant amount of time with this guy. And I straight up asked him, I said, hey, so let's assume that I present to you an offer that you feel is fair. What would happen next? And he said, well, what would happen is I would hang up the phone. I would call mom immediately. And then I would call you right back. And I stress test that 2 or 3 times to validate that what he was saying would actually happen. And he passed the stress test. And so I proceeded forward with the process. So it was a Sunday afternoon, and I presented him the offer, and he thought it was fair. And he said, okay, let me call mom, and I'll call you right back. So that happened. He called me back. He said, all right, spoke with mom. Mom is good. So you can work with her to facilitate signature, and we'll be good to go. So I called mom and got her on the phone. This is, again, a late Sunday afternoon. And mom and I have a good conversation. I end up listening to her. She's a 74-year-old woman who is retired and has a lot of stories. And so I listened to her for about an hour. But when it came to figuring out getting the signature, she not only was 74, but she had mobility issues. She had some health stuff that prevented her from moving around. So she was reliant upon her daughter, who she was staying with, to drive her places. And she said, my daughter isn't really super reliable. I could tell you that I would meet you somewhere at 10, but then we might not show up until 11 because I am dependent on my daughter to travel and take me places, and she is not very good at being on time. So I said, okay. We went through the email thing. Nope, I don't do email. I am not great with technology. So I don't do email. So here I am on a Sunday afternoon. A seller has agreed to sell me the house, but there is a big obstacle on getting the actual signature so that we can move forward with the process and get this deal done. Well, in the moment, what I decided to do is I asked her, I said, well, hey, what are you doing the rest of this afternoon? And she said nothing. And I said, okay, what if I come out to see you now? You don't have to rely on your daughter. I just come to where you're staying, and I go over this agreement with you, assuming that you're comfortable. I get your autograph, and then we could get this process started. And she agreed. So I drove out to her house. This was an hour and a half away from me, by the way. And I drove an hour and a half to see her. I spent an hour with her getting her signature and just listening to more of her stories. And then I drove an hour and a half back. So there were 4 hours of my day that popped up completely unexpectedly. And for what it's worth, and for those of you that have kids, I was with my 2 little girls. We were going to, as a family, my 2 girls and my wife and I, we were going to set up Halloween decorations. Yes, it's September. My wife wants to do that very early. And we had a nice little family afternoon planned. And I had this call scheduled. And of course, I didn't anticipate something like this happening. So I really didn't have a strong desire to change everything about my Sunday afternoon to go get the signature. But I knew that if I didn't go get the signature, there could be so many things that could happen between now and the time I try and coordinate to get the signature that could happen that may prevent us from actually executing on this deal. And this has happened before. So for those of you that are in real estate, the amount of time that it takes from someone verbally saying yes to actually getting the signature, the more time that passes between those two things, the lower your probability gets of actually getting that deal done. Someone could call the seller, someone could call the seller's son, maybe someone might offer something higher, maybe a situation changes. In real estate, once you get that process going and you send it to the title company, and then you get your transaction coordinator team involved, and then things are moving in the right direction and they have to fill out an authorization form. I mean, there's significant momentum towards getting this deal done. And if that momentum is not there, then in, let's say, you know, a random uncle weighs in and is like, oh, I can't believe you're selling that house for that price. And someone always has an opinion, right? And usually it's someone that knows nothing about real estate, but someone that wants to throw in their opinion so that they can feel validated in the conversation with their family member. We've all had stuff like that happen. So I made the decision in that moment to, you know what? I have goals within my business. I need this deal in order to make a step closer to get those goals. The best thing for my business is just to stop what I'm doing and to go resolve that obstacle and get the signature. And so that's what I did. So we added another deal to the deals that we were working. And we did that because I simply asked myself, well, what is required? And I went and did it. And it's not like I had this strong feeling of wanting to drive an hour and a half away, wanting to spend what I knew would be a considerable amount of time speaking with her and listening to her stories, because I just finished doing that on the phone. And then I drove an hour and a half back. I didn't have this strong feeling that I wanted to do that, but I did it anyway. And it's not even for me. A lot of people talk about discipline, and I actually get a lot of encouragement and kudos for, quote, being disciplined, right? And I don't even know that it's discipline. It's just I have a clear destination of where I want to go with my business. And when I ask myself, well, what is required in this scenario, or does this situation or does this decision that I'm making get me closer or further away from where it is that I want to go, then it's very clear, right? So you don't have to have this overwhelming sense of willpower that you're always putting to use. You don't have to feel like you're so disciplined. But what you can train yourself to do is, despite how you feel about doing something, you just ask yourself, what are my goals? Is this going to move me closer or further away from where it is that I want to go? And then you act accordingly. It's very simple. I want to share that framework with you because I think that's a big reason why people don't actually end up doing anything, is because they think, because they don't feel like doing something, that warrants them not actually doing it. Because in life, we should want to be happy, and that means we should do things that we feel like doing. And I frankly think that's a huge crock of bullshit. What's important is that you're very, very clear on where it is that you want to go, and you're constantly evaluating and constantly doing what is required in order to get there. And so, to repeat and to simplify the framework, so the first step is having a very clear destination, being so crystal clear on where it is that you want to go that in the middle of anything that you're doing, you can pick your head up, and you can see extremely clearly where it is that you want to go. The second thing you do is, when situations come up or when you're making decisions about how to spend your time, you ask yourself, will this action get me further away, or will it get me closer to where it is that I want to go? And I think that's so important, because when we're in the middle of things, we may forget about this goal that we set, or we may forget about this crystal clear outcome that we have set for ourselves. And that's why it's so important to be so crystal clear. But then as situations arise, when someone is asking for your time, or when something pops up in your business and you're trying to figure out, oh, what should I do? Should I do this? Or should I schedule that appointment Monday or Tuesday? My calendar looks a little bit better Tuesday, then I could spend time with my girls. So when those situations come up, you just ask yourself, if I do this, will it get me closer or further away from where it is that I want to go? And the third thing you do is you choose the option that gets you and moves you closer to the destination that you've set. And the last thing I want to close out on this is, it's okay to have seasons. Right now, I am in a very specific season of my life that is very, very focused on the growth of my business. And that doesn't mean that it takes away from my ability to be a good father. It simply means the season that I'm in right now is making myself a better business owner, getting my business to a level of where it needs to be. Because at the end of the day, if I can acquire those skills and do those things, my girls are going to be better in the long run anyway, because I'm going to be more equipped to teach them things that I may not have been equipped to teach them had I not taken that certain action. And so as you're thinking about and you're making these decisions, well, what is required to get me to where I want to go? Or it's okay to be in seasons and give yourself some grace if you are in a little bit more of a season of growing your business or a season of work. That doesn't make you a bad father or a bad wife or a bad mother. You can still focus 100% of your attention on your family when it's appropriate, and you give them the time that they need, and you do what is required to be the mother, to be the father to your kids. But if you're in a season where you just need to work a little bit more, that's okay. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad mother, that you're a bad father. So wanted to share that quick story, something that came up. And this is a constant reminder to myself to make sure I am constantly doing what is required to move me closer to where it is that I want to go. And I wanted to share it with you in the event that it might be helpful. So I'll see you guys in the next one.